Hey y'all, this is Hans Anderson. I'm the producer of the Agile Podcast, where we explore the stories and people behind Agile web solutions. Over the next few months, we're going to be telling a lot of different stories about, say, migrating out of Drupal, or how 508 compliance, that's that mandate that requires federal agencies to make their websites more accessible to people with impaired vision or other disabilities, actually improves accessibility for nearly everyone who visits your website. In these stories, we'll be talking a lot about the concept of Agile. It's something that Blake Newman, one of the hosts of this show, talks about all the time. And to tell you about Blake's story, we're going back to the mid-'80s. Blake was maybe 21 and about to leave the military. He was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina and facing a choice that many people in their 20s face: what am I going to do for work? He knew one thing for certain: he didn't want to re-enlist.
When I was in the Army, it was the 82nd Airborne Division. I was in an infantry unit, and it was an elite unit, and it was a pretty rough way to make a living. And so after 3 years, I realized that you can grow old fast doing this type of thing. And so I was highly motivated to get out of the Army, go to college, and be a professional.
Because, as Blake says, all he was learning about was
hand grenades, hand-to-hand combat, and weapons and demolitions and stuff like that.
As part of leaving the military, Blake was given a few options for vocational learning.
I think it was auto mechanics, barbershop, bartending, and computer programming. And I thought, I think I'll take the computer programming class. And so it was really, it is an eye-opener, and I really enjoyed it, and I really absorbed it. We're working on these old Apple II computers, and you had to plug in a keyboard and a monitor to it. But once I took that class, I knew that this is what I wanted to do, and that's kind of set the direction of my career thereafter. And that was in 1985. So that's gotta do the math. I guess that's 35 years ago.
Blake went to college after that. He actually ended up taking mostly business classes there, but his electives were in computer programming. He did this for a simple reason: his dad.
My father always told me, you got to study business. You got to be a businessman. You got to be an entrepreneur. And since I was a child, he kind of said that. And I think he always fantasized about being an entrepreneur. Maybe when he was a kid, he sold fruit or something like that. But he always told me, be an entrepreneur. So when I graduated, I got a job at Defense Information Systems Agency,
which was under the Department of Defense. Blake was hired on in the 1990s. He saw the emergence of the World Wide Web, which led to a rude surprise.
I remember being on a program, and after 4 years, and the government dumped $400 million into this program, they canceled it abruptly because it was overcome by technology. It was basically rendered obsolete because at the same time, this World Wide Web basically emerged, and everything that they were doing was not, it was assuming that this web didn't exist. And then when the web existed, then whatever they were building just wasn't really relevant anymore. And I realized I just wasted 4 years of my life, and the government wasted $400 million.
That experience wasn't all for nothing, though. It taught Blake a lesson that he still carries with him today about being agile. Agile basically being the ability and, more importantly, the willingness to change. It's often used in relation to agile software development, where you quickly prototype and adapt to feedback. Just so you know, there's a lot more in there, and we'll talk about it later, but I'll leave it there for now. Agile can also be applied to almost anything in life. So when you spend 4 years working on a project that quickly becomes obsolete after the rise of the World Wide Web, what do?
I'm going to get out, I'm going to become an entrepreneur, and maybe I'll become an artist.
Blake embraced the World Wide Web. It's now 1995.
So I registered photographer.com, and I decided I was going to basically become an artist, a photographer, and an entrepreneur.
Blake did what many people want to do when they're no longer working for the government: move far away from Washington, D.C. He ended up in Santa Monica, California, enjoying the sun, enjoying the beach. He wanted to be an artist and developed a platform that set people up with photographers. Things were working out for a few years, and then they weren't.
That was 1995. So 99, 2000, there was like the dot-com bust. There was like a recession. There was 9/11. Here in DC, we had this sniper who who terrorized the city for about a month. And all that just basically caused people to reevaluate their values and things like that. And at the same time, digital photography came out, digital cameras, Photoshop. The whole photography business, which was great for about 5 years, just started to like crash and plummet.
Blake says that if he'd sold photographer.com before the bubble burst, he'd be rich.
If I'd sold it in 1999 or 2000, I probably wouldn't be in this interview right now. I'd be on a different interview. But I would have had enough money to live the rest of my life.
Of course, he's here talking to me instead. In 2005, he sold it to a buyer who just pretty much wanted the domain name, which, by the way, today is worth $600,000. He started a company called Incubation.
Finally, I decided to create a services company because I knew that, you can get money doing services. So that was basically the inception of the company. At the time, we called it Incubation. We were out on the West Coast. We're in California. And most of the people coming to my office were, they were aspiring, startups. They wanted to create the next Facebook. So we were kind of to help incubate and accelerate startups.
So small clients, lots of projects.
But then, there was like another recession, 2008, 2009.
And time to be agile again.
We decided to move to DC and get as close as we could to the White House because we figured Obama would be a tech president, would be investing a lot of money in government websites. So we moved to DC, and within 18 months, I was sitting in the White House with the White House CIO working on data.gov and USAspending.gov. And, we set the goal and 18 months later, we were there.
It was a culmination of a lot of work and a testament to being agile. Blake loved the idea of Agile so much, he changed his company name from Incubation to Agileana.
I decided that, we were going to be lean and we were going to be agile and we're going to serve the federal government. And so that kind of became the name Agileana, lean and agile.
Two of the core tenets of his business. Throughout Blake's life, there are these moments. They're like agile insights. One was way back in the mid-'80s in the military when he chose computer programming over, say, being a barber. Another was working for the government and seeing millions of dollars go to waste when they failed to adapt to emerging technology. He adapted to the World Wide Web shortly thereafter. Then there was what happened next at Incubation and eventually Agileana. Today, Blake has become more of a strategist. He identifies problems, trends, and new opportunities for Agileana. And he's going to be sharing some of those insights on the podcast, along with his co-host Bree Ripley, who, by the way, you'll be meeting soon. So stay tuned. We'll be starting the show on September 10th. This podcast is produced by Agileana, a DC-based web development company. To learn more about Agileana, you can visit our website, Agileana.com, or send us an email. We're at results@Agileana.com. Talk to you soon.